So we all know the world needs to go green, right? But here's the thing. How do you actually do it? We're talking about projects that cost billions of dollars where one wrong move could be a total disaster. Well, today we're going to look at how AI is stepping in to tackle that exact challenge. Let's dive in.
I mean, this really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's something governments and big investors all over the globe are wrestling with. We know the switch to clean energy is absolutely essential, but the amount of money we're talking about, it's just staggering. And the risks? They're huge.
You know, you got to think of it like this. We're in this global race to completely overhaul the energy systems we spent the last 100 years building. We're trying to move away from fossil fuels and into a world powered by the sun, the wind, you name it. But, and this is the key part, you can't just flip a switch. It's a massive, massive gamble, both financially and technically.
And that really gets us to the heart of the issue, what we're calling the green investment gamble.
Okay, just think about it for a second. Imagine you're in charge of planning a gigantic solar farm or maybe a brand new green hydrogen plant. These things are unbelievably complex. They cost a fortune, and they are just loaded with risk. If you mess up the design, or if you get the financial projections wrong, well, the fallout could be catastrophic, not just for the investors who lose their shirts, but for our climate goals, too.
So, the big question is, how do you lower that risk? How do you make these projects safer bets? Well, that question is leading to a whole new kind of solution, and for us, it leads to a mission for clean energy.
So, to get a handle on all this complexity, we're seeing a new wave of really sophisticated digital tools pop up. And today, we're going to look at one in particular as a kind of case study. It's a platform called the Clean Green Energy Mission, or cGEM for short. So what exactly is this thing? Well, here's the most important part. cGEM is an AI-powered system that's built to do two things, and do them really well. First, it figures out if a green energy project is even possible from an engineering standpoint. And second, it checks if it's going to make money, if it's financially viable. It's all about bridging that huge gap between the blueprints and the bank.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works. We'll start on the technical side, with what you could basically call a digital power plant.
Now, what's so cool about this platform is just how versatile it is. It's not a one-trick pony. It can model and design systems for solar, for wind, and even for cutting-edge stuff like green hydrogen and green ammonia. It can even handle things like biomass or waste heat recovery. And, this is so important, it brings battery storage systems into the mix. Okay, so the beating heart of this whole platform is something its creators call the AI-powered energy engine. You can think of it as the brains of the operation. It's what simulates how all these different technologies will actually perform out there in the real world. You know, whether we're talking about a massive solar farm stretching for miles or a super complex green hydrogen plant. And this gets to one of the biggest challenges with renewables, right? The sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing. That's exactly why bringing in these huge battery energy storage systems, or BESS as they're called, is so critical. The platform actually models how to bottle up all that energy when it's abundant and then release it when you need it most. That's how you get a power supply that's steady and reliable.
Okay, so having a perfect engineering model is awesome, but let's be real, that's only half the battle. Which brings us to the other side of the coin, moving from engineering to economics.
Now, this might sound super obvious, but it's probably the most important point. You could have the most genius, world-changing green energy design ever, but if the numbers don't make sense to investors, it's just not going to happen. It'll stay on the drawing board forever.
So how does a tool like cGEM actually connect those two worlds? Well, it basically follows a really logical four-step playbook. Step 1, it models all the energy generation. We just saw that. Step 2, it figures out what the whole thing is going to cost, what's known in the biz as CapEx. Then step 3, it dives deep into the financials to see if it's a good investment. And finally, step 4, it calculates the good it's doing for the planet by measuring its carbon impact.
And that whole financial deep dive, that's handled by a part of the system called FinExpert. And its job is pretty clear. Take all that super technical engineering data and crunch it down into a bankable business plan. You know, something you can confidently walk into a boardroom with and get that big yes.
See, investors have this whole language of their own, a bunch of complex metrics they use to size up a project. You'll hear all these acronyms thrown around, like IRR, NPV, DSCR. It can sound pretty intimidating. But at the end of the day, all these numbers are just trying to answer one simple, crucial question. Is this a good investment? And the platform just crunches all those numbers for you automatically, giving you a crystal clear picture of the project's financial health.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. What does having a tool like this really mean for the bigger picture? Well, it means we can start building that greener future using much, much smarter tools.
So really, the bottom line is this. By simulating pretty much every single aspect of a project before you even start, these tools slash the risk for investors. And when the risk goes down, guess what? It gets a whole lot easier to get your hands on the billions in funding you need, and that is what speeds up the entire global shift to clean energy.
And of course, it all comes full circle back to the environment. I mean, the platform isn't just about financial returns. It calculates the project's carbon footprint, and it even compares it to what a fossil fuel plant would produce. It can also analyze how much money you could make from carbon credits, basically turning the project's green credentials into another source of revenue.
Maybe the best way to picture it is like this. It's like having a complete, living, digital blueprint for the future. It's a blueprint that lets you look at a project from every single angle imaginable. The engineering, the money, the environmental impact, all before one single shovel ever breaks ground.
And that leaves us with a pretty mind-bending thought to wrap up on. We're literally watching AI learn how to architect our planet's entire green infrastructure from scratch. So you have to wonder, if we can do this for energy, what does this level of planning and simulation mean for the future of building, well, pretty much anything?